Hey everybody, welcome back to the Parkinson's Disease Education Podcast. In this episode, this is going to be part 3 of 3 of the conversation with Ian Robertson. In this conclusion, there's some nuggets you're going to want to listen out for, and be sure to stick to the end of the video to do so. Now, the first thing you're going to want to look out for and listen for is where Ian discusses a potentially embarrassing moment as a person with Parkinson's disease, but how he dealt with it and why it's very important that you should basically disclose that you have Parkinson's disease with other people as opposed to trying to hide it. Number 2 is Ian talks about the 4 P's of practice, which he did allude to in a previous video interview that we did. But as a reminder, that's going to be included in this video. And the 4 P's of practice is what he used in his goaltending, where he instructed goalies in hockey. And you'll find out what those 4 P's are that you could apply into your daily life as a person with Parkinson's disease in terms of a possible way to approach how you handle things. And again, be sure to stick to the end of the video because I want to share contact information for Ian with you if you do want to get in touch with him either on social media or on his website. But without further ado, let's get into the episode. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Parkinson's Disease Education Show, where we demystify the disease and empower you as the person with Parkinson's disease to reach your true potential. The content contained on this show is for informational purposes only and is not meant to be a replacement for information or advice that you receive from your in-person medical or therapy professionals. If you haven't already, I hope you'll consider subscribing, and for an even more personalized experience, please ask us about our memberships. Now, without further ado, let's start the show.
Get back to the balance, gait, and postural problems. I find the more we can pay attention to how we move, why we move, the purpose of what we're doing stuff, the less those situations affect me.
That's good, though. I mean, and that awareness is something that everybody does not have, but they probably should try to develop.
And then again, that's when I think our previous talk was that we talked about the 4 P's of practice. You know, you got to have a purpose, you got to be precise, you got to be power, and you got to be patient for it to take effect.
Right.
And so those 4 things I'm still very adamant on that we do. And again, my biggest pet peeve is with the vision, like connecting our vision to how we move, why we move, where we move to, when we move there. You know, everything start everything. And then they try and rationalize it with the brain. And then the brain goes, yeah, that makes sense. And I'll tell the body to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very valid point about the connection with vision. We were born seeing for a reason, so it naturally follows that our movements will be affected by vision.
Yeah, I don't know where I saw this, but it's a matter of getting enough input to the brain so the brain can provide the output to the body. But eventually, as you do more of it, as you move, that's an output, but it's also an input of information to
most definitely.
And it's sort of a loop that everything has to go together to help you move together. And with Parkinson's, I find it's trying to take away. It hits our weakest link in the chain, so to say. So if I'm not getting I don't smell, so I don't have taste. Well, that's 2 senses that I got to try and compensate for now to plan to do something else. You know, like maybe just to enjoy a meal. It might be the texture of the meal that now I enjoy. You know. Yeah. But and so there's little things that the Parkinson's takes away from you that you got to try and replace that, so that you can still experience whatever it is you're trying to tackle.
Right. That's a good way to look at it. Because that loss of taste and smell. I mean, I'm sure for a lot of folks, and I'm assuming for you too at first, could be very depressing if you don't
It,
take something positive and add it to your enjoyment.
there's certain foods I really have really enjoyed that I can't enjoy now, and some I to have actually taste anything, it's got to be really spicy, but I
Yeah,
can't enjoy it. The body doesn't take it.
yeah, you'll pay for it later, huh?
Yeah, it has a burning effect, shall we say?
I understand. You're burning the candle at both ends, and in between. Yeah. So something else I was going to ask you quickly was, um, I guess maybe two questions, but one question was, whenever you have found yourself in a freezing episode, and the techniques that you use, whether it's self-talk and or movements, um, do you feel like that's as effective, or can it be effective when you're in an off time relatively to when you're on? Do you feel like you're able to break out of a freezing episode when you're off using those techniques?
Yeah, well, a lot of it has to do, I think, with self-confidence. There was an issue I had when we went up to Canmore, Alberta, which is near Banff, where my
Uh-huh.
wife has a pottery store, and I couldn't get my backpack off, and that's where my drugs were, and so I had to ask for help, and I have no problem asking for help. I'm not embarrassed by my Parkinson's, and I'm very comfortable with it. I don't like it, but I'm comfortable with it,
Yeah.
and and I find that if I'm not comfortable with it, it's kind of hard to have other people comfortable dealing with me because they're not comfortable. Self-confidence and being comfortable with the disease, knowing it's going to happen, and so yeah, it may catch me uh, at an opportunity that I wasn't expecting, but it's I'm still not a situation where I'm unaware it could have happened. So it's
Right.
easy. I have a plan to to uh, to conquer it, and knowing that, yes, they're not worried about it happening.
Yeah. You bring up a good point too about kind of diffusing the stigma that can go along with Parkinson's disease in the public eye. Um, I love what you said there about not liking it, but being comfortable with it, because I feel like a lot of people are embarrassed by Parkinson's and how they appear to other folks in public. And some folks have an issue with asking for help, regardless of whether they have PD or not. And then having PD doesn't help them want to ask for help anymore, any more than they did before. And in fact, it may cause them to do less asking for help. Um, but I guess I'm rambling. The point I was going to make is that I think it's an important reminder for folks watching and listening to realize that if you have this diagnosis, you don't have to like it. You don't have to, and I'm not going to advocate that you should, but you have to own it. Own it to the
Yes.
point where you understand it, you can face it, and you can say, "Not today, Satan." And in those moments to basically recognize those limitations and to realize that other folks will be empathetic or sympathetic to that when you do ask for assistance. They're not going to say no, and
Well,
even if and again, if well, they may say no, but that says more about them than about anything about you.
this couple that I approached on the street, I was kind of kinetic at the time, so I'm probably weaving up there, and I was going, "Excuse me." They probably go, "Oh God, he's going to ask for money or something." I said, "I have Parkinson's. Can I get my backpack off?" And all of a sudden, you could see their face go, "Oh yeah, no problem." You know. They were
Exactly.
as little tentative as I approached them. And I probably would have been a little tentative if I saw me approach.
Right.
You know? But once you explain the situation, they were helpful, and they even asked if there's anything more they could do. I said, no, that's fine. I just need to get it off to get my bills. And I fit my backpack before I put on my shoulders, before I put my coat on. Then I put my coat on, put my backpack on top of that, and like too tight. I was like, take it off.
Yeah. It's like a turtle on the back, you know. Yeah, it's like the irony of having to get the pills out of the bag. It's like I need my pills out of the bag so I can put it on and get it off again later. You know? Anyway, yeah. But I think that's a valid point. Really, it's just again, you have to know your limitations. Ask for help when you need to, because there's no point in being a hero or being proud about it, uh, or falsely humble about it.
I had one other point I just brought up too.
Uh
Like
huh.
the last little while, I've had two occasions. One was with my general doctor, and
Hmm.
we were in there, and she was going, "Ooh, you're moving very poorly today. Maybe we should change your dosage on pills." And I said, "No, no, no, no. I have no problem moving today." "Well, you can hardly move today." I said, "Here's what I was doing 2 hours ago." And I was dancing, swaying to my music, doing one of my videos. I said, "Just because you see me now in
Yeah.
this 20 minutes, don't dose me for that 20 minutes. Dose me for what the rest of the day." And I had that happen. I had to go to the hospital once, and the same thing. It's just because you're going to a doctor or you're going to your specialist or you're going to the hospital, don't assume they know what's best for you. Right.
Absolutely 100% right. That is, it's, and in some ways, it's almost frightening to say that, but you have to know that there are many medical practitioners out there that have absolutely no clue how to properly handle Parkinson's at certain, I mean, and in all fairness, they're not always specialized in those areas. And so they're going to treat things in a more general way, especially like in an ER, like or a hospital environment where they've got to
Yeah.
focus on they're not always going to be focused on that very specific aspect of your experience.
But
So,
it got me thinking that if I was going to up my medicine or change my medicine because of what she saw in that 10, 15 minutes, like what kind of effect would that have on me?
exactly. And how often, and if you had that experience, can you imagine how many folks go through the same thing and they do get a prescription adjustment because of it? They might be
Yeah.
all over the place in terms of their symptoms later, the side effects. They increasing carbidopa levodopa when you don't need to, that's going to result in worse movement problems later, more dyskinesia. Um, it could even result in the opposite. You could even have slower movements, smaller movements again,
Yeah.
because the overdosing can be just as bad as underdosing.
So when I talk about, again, we're going to talk about exercise and gait and postural and balance issues, is that
Yep.
we have to this sounds weird, but we have to exercise and practice with our medication. And we got to play to a certain degree, play around with it to find out how it works with you.
Yep.
Like I take 2.5 Cinnamate 5 times a day,
Yeah.
which sounds, but every 4 hours. But it's not every 4 hours I take it. Sometimes it's a 3 hour gap. Sometimes it's a 5 hour gap. It depends on what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, who I'm with, because those activities can artificially produce a little bit of dopamine, which I don't
Sure.
need.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely true. That's a great point.
Exercise with our body or practice what we do with our body, but it seems I don't know how this sounds, but we have to exercise and play around with our medication a bit too. Like, when do I eat after I take it? Does it affect me or not?
Yeah.
All the little things, because they say don't eat it with protein, because protein will fight for the. But then, from my understanding, it only affects 25% of the population.
Oh, really? I
75%
hadn't heard that statistic. Okay.
70% can eat it, and it doesn't really matter. You know,
Ah,
and so it's educating yourself about the disease and applying it to yourself is a vital part of exercise.
yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it's a valid point you bring up about medication. That is not going to be the same for every individual. It's not going to be. It's not going to be necessarily. I'm trying to think of my words here. Individually, it's different, but also within your own dosage and your own regimen, adjustments will need to be made to continue that balance of on and off times. And
Yes.
that's going to change over time. So it's never going to be
Well,
something that stays the same.
it's a reason why. And another thing I don't like about exercise is charting it, because I mean it's hard to go. Hey, I did 10 push-ups today. I was on. I had this to eat. I ate it this time. I ate it that time. And yet tomorrow, I've progressed. I'm now another day older. My Parkinson's is a little day older. I've ate at different times. My only chart is when I exercise is, did I give you my best? And that's it. The number of reps I did, to me, is irrelevant. It's I worked out for a half hour and I gave you my best, and I'll leave it at that.
That's all you can do is the best you can do.
Anyways,
Well,
I'm glad that this is what I was after for you. I just wanted to see, get your feedback on it.
sure. And I really enjoy, passing these ideas back and forth, because it's beneficial for both of us and also for anybody else that's going to hear this later or watch this later. Um, I think it's thought provoking, and that's not, I feel like that's something that's needed across this community, because I don't know if you said this, Ian, or if somebody else said this, maybe David, but it may have even been at the meeting we were at. But I don't feel like a lot of people question things. Uh,
No,
I'm not just singling out persons with Parkinson's here, but just overall, people a lot of times just tend to take things at face value. But I love the 4 Ps that you talk about, because that really is something that, I mean, it could be applied to almost anything, but especially when we're talking about living with a chronic disease and methods to fight against it and live with it, that sums it up right there. Purpose, patience, persistence, all those things.
yeah. Well, and it's like I try to, when I address Parkinson's, when it's towards me, it's my Parkinson's,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah,
Parkinson's.
yes, absolutely. It is your experience with Parkinson's, not someone else's. And I think that's important for everybody to understand, clinicians, persons with Parkinson's alike, that there are very many similarities, but every person is different and every experience is going to be individual.
Yes, and that's a hard thing to learn.
It is. I've had to do a lot of learning on that front. I'm still learning that, but I remember when I was first practicing, I guess I thought I knew a lot, but it was particularly about, once I was working with folks with the physical therapy aspect of Parkinson's, I thought I knew what I thought I knew until I found out how much I didn't know.
And that's the problem is that I use the statement that the more I learn, the dumber I become.
Right. No, I mean,
Everything I,
I agree.
everything I have two more questions. Yeah.
Well, an example, what you just said earlier got my attention about the protein, because as a general rule, I would agree with the principle of protein does objectively interfere with the absorption of levodopa. But as you pointed out, I did not know there was a very vast, large percentage of people apparently that don't have an issue with that. It's only
Yeah,
25%.
I can't remember where I read that, it was on some webinar that I was watching, and they were talking
Oh, yeah.
about it. And then
That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
thing I learned, which is really weird, is when they talk about diet change, and it can be it's not necessarily what you eat, but how you eat it. And then everything starts in the gut, and if you're cooking, say, beef well done, it's harder to digest well done beef than it is rare beef.
Right.
And so I can still have my beef because I like it really rare, so it's easy to digest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my dad, who liked it really well done, that would have been a diet change for him because
Yes.
he would,
He might have had to compromise. He might have had to compromise to medium.
Yeah. So there's many things to learn about it that's why you like going to support groups or having exchanges like this, is that you're sharing information and feedback and
Yeah.
exposing you to new ideas that you haven't heard and might want to try.
Yeah, and I value that so much. So I always appreciate your questions and your bringing these topics up to me, because I learned as much from it as I hope other people are going to learn from it as well. And it helped, and even just reiterating things that we know, it helps me to learn it.
Yeah,
to remember
and I'm sure it's happened because I know it's happened to me. It's that you just get comfortable in how you present something.
Yeah.
That for a while you drop little things that you used to have in your topic, and you say, "Oh, I said the same thing." I don't remember hearing
that. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think that this was a great topic to bring up. Again, I loved the question about exercising during off times and whether you should or shouldn't, basically, and also the left-right dominance issue and the freezing. But I like how the conversation kind of segued into a little bit more of perception of Parkinson's disease within yourself and within the community as well. We talked about a lot. I'll have to re-listen to this to remember everything, but
we meander our way through.
Yes. Well, again, I think the spontaneity is sometimes better than having an agenda on a conversation. So it lends itself to more genuine conversation, and also it provokes thoughts that you didn't think you were going to have, and then that leads to more conversation. So that's good. I like it. So anyway, Ian, I appreciate your time today and for reaching out to talk again. And
thank you for this old, tired, poor, shaky guy.
All right, well, keep things shaking.
Okay. So to see you around.
All right. Well, you take care. It was good to talk to you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was really fun to sit down and record this with Ian, and I'm glad that you got to see this in several parts. If you want me to ask any other questions of Ian, or if you'd like him back on the channel, on the show, please do let me know in the comments. And if you have questions for either one of us, as always, please feel free to leave those in the comments section. And that's going to be the last of this series of videos with Ian. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you on the channel again. And be empowered. Have a great day. See you in the next video. 3. Nope, that's 2. That's 1. 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. What's I gonna say?